Now, I mentioned it first and foremost. I always love to lead with it because I always like bringing these top 25 rankings out. I'm proud of what we were able to build with the Any Given Saturday top 25 power ratings. And I do want to focus in on that part specifically. These top 25 that I'm going to show you here at the top of this podcast, these are not how I would individually rank these teams, specifically, say, for like the college football playoff, for example. If you want to see that, you got to find a certain post that I made on the All College Football Talk Facebook page. If you can find it, let me know, and then plug the Any Given Saturday podcast. If you happen to be a part of that Facebook group, by the way. But what is the Any Given Saturday top 25? These are not how I would rank these teams. Like I said before, what these power ratings represent is if these two teams were to play on a football field today, if they were to play, how and whom would be favored over whomst on a neutral side field? And it's based off of that team's entire body of work over the course of the season so far. So we're moving into week number 10 as of right now. This is to account for the work that the team has done from week 0 through week 9, the most recent week that we've been able to complete in this college football season. So that's what these power ratings start. They're not rankings. These are power ratings. I want to make that very crystal clear. All right, we good? I think we're good. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and show that top 25. We're going to work our way from the bottom and move our way up to the top a little bit more. We actually have 3 new teams entering the top 25, and they all come in that 21 to 25 range. So, here's what that 21 to 25 range is looking like right now. Like I said, we got 3 new teams entering the top 25. And also, we did have so if you're wondering about which team specifically left this top 25, Clemson, their loss to NC State, that kicked them out. We also have Miami struggling against Virginia. They are no longer a part of this top 25 power ratings as well. And of course, we have Duke. I was pretty high on Duke for the last few weeks, but Duke looked lethargic in their performance against Louisville, and we favored in the win. So that was a real surprise for us. Not a game we're going to specifically talk about here tonight, but it was bad enough to where Duke is going to be kicked out of this top 25. So 3 new teams in the top 25. Starting at number 25, we actually, for the first time in the history of this Any Given Saturday power ratings that we've been doing this, we do have a group of 5 team. However, they are not going to be a group of 5 team forever. It is the SMU Mustangs. Now, I know this is going to surprise some people a little bit. This is the only group of 5 team that I have in my Any Given Saturday top 25. The reason why I don't is that SMU actually has some pretty good losses overall. Mainly their loss to Oklahoma. It was a surprisingly competitive game. Oklahoma did end up pulling away late in that one, but SMU, particularly in the last couple of weeks and why they primarily find themselves here, they have been absolutely, positively been dominating over the past couple of weeks. On the road against Temple, they blow out Temple 55-0, and then Tulsa. They took on Tulsa, and it's not like they were, well, they kind of were a heavy favorite, like a 20-point favorite, but they did Tulsa dirty. They beat Tulsa 69-10. It was an absolute bloodbath. SMU, they have been rolling, particularly after their loss to TCU. They look like a team that looks like they are ready to compete at the Power 5 level. They are going to the ACC after this season. And here's the thing with SMU. They control their own destiny to get the American Conference Championship. The 4 games that they have left, Rice, North Texas, Memphis, and Navy, in my opinion, SMU should be favored from those 4 teams. And the 2 teams that they are tied with on top of the American standings, Tulane and UTSA, not only do they not have to play them, they actually avoid them in the regular season, but in addition, Tulane and UTSA play each other at the end of the year. So SMU actually can't afford to lose a game in American Conference play, and they'll likely still be in. But if they win out, they can continue to handle their own destiny, and they might be in that hosting of the American Conference Championship at the end of the year as well. Really intrigued by SMU. I think it's the type of team where if they can continue to win games moving forward, not only could they rise in our any given Saturday top 25, but in addition, we could see them in the college football playoff top 25 towards the end of the season. Keep an eye on SMU. They're going to be a team to that's going to intrigue some people. Up next, we have Oklahoma State at number 24. They're going to be ranked for the very first time. And listen, Oklahoma State, I'm a Bearcats fan through and through, right? Oklahoma State did my team dirty. That game was not close. It was not close by any stretch of the imagination. I'm looking at what happened in that Oklahoma State and Cincinnati game, and Stillwater, Oklahoma was rocking. The Cowboys won 45-13. They looked particularly explosive in that second half. That really helped them build this lead. Headlined by their star tailback, Ollie Gordon III. Ollie Gordon III has been absolutely on fire. He's had a good season, but he's really turned it on the last couple of games. 3 games in particular, helped pull the upset against Kansas. He had 170 yards and a touchdown. West Virginia had 4 touchdowns and nearly 300 yards on the ground, and then followed that performance up with a 271-yard performance on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Oh, and he averaged over 10 yards a carry. The dude was averaging a first down every time he touched the ball. He was a walking first down in that Cincinnati game. I hated it as a Cincinnati Bearcats fan, but as trying to be as unbiased as possible, he was a dog. He was absolutely a dog. And Oklahoma State, team that could also possibly make a run moving forward. Last 4 games of the season, they could make some noise. They take on Oklahoma. They take on Oklahoma in the Bedlam game. That game is also at home. Also could be the last time that we see the Bedlam game happen as Oklahoma makes the transition to the SEC. Oklahoma State can certainly create some chaos in this final month of the season. Other than that Oklahoma game, all these other games that I see, UCF, Houston, BYU, they should be favored in those games as well. So Oklahoma State, they could mess around and have a 10-win season. A lot of that, though, does ride on that Bedlam game. But Oklahoma State is peaking at the right time, specifically for that upcoming matchup. Now we move on to number 22. We got the Utah Utes that are still in here, but they fell quite a bit. We moved them down 7 spots. We had them ranked number 15 in this power ratings last week. They played against Oregon, and Oregon dog walks Utah. Unfortunately, Utah is not built to win in a shootout kind of game. This is a team that has to rely on its defense, and unfortunately what happens, the defense could not hold back Bo Nix and the Oregon offensive attack. Oregon, one of the most explosive offenses in the entire country, and Utah, without Cam Rising, they just never had a chance. And until Cam Rising comes back, and who knows if Cam Rising plays for Utah ever again. That knee injury, more serious than imagined. We might not see him play college football ever again. That is a real possibility. Utah needs a quarterback, and Utah needs a more dynamic offense. They're still a good team, don't get me wrong, but not the same level as the same Utah team that we saw last year or even 2 years ago that ended up winning the Pac-12 conference. Still a top 25 team in my opinion, though. And then at number 21, I have Louisville in there. I have not put Louisville in there the entire season, but after what they did to Duke, I had to put them in there. I had to give Louisville their flowers. I hesitated putting Louisville in here because of Louisville's schedule. And then they beat Notre Dame, and that was a really good win, but it seemed fluky given how they lose to Pittsburgh the next week. That was really what held them back. If they would have just handled business against Pittsburgh, they would have been in here sooner, but they made Riley Leonard look terrible. They made the entire Duke offense look terrible, pitched a shutout. You know how hard it is to do that in modern college football with the way that the game is really designed to have as high scoring games as possible, with the exception of the new clock rule. But even then, like, the clock rule hasn't really changed dramatically how many plays there are in a game. We still have a pretty similar level of excitement, but Louisville dominated against Duke. And because of that, I did put Louisville in the top 25. They are my number 21 team in this week's edition of the Power Ratings. Now, we'll keep it rolling here. We're going to show the top 20 up next. And, not a lot of changes in the top 20, at least not significant movement. I still have North Carolina here at number 20, but it has been a really rough 2 weeks. We got to keep it real here. Losing to Virginia was bad, and then they also lost to Georgia Tech. I still think they're a top 25 team, but man, those last 2 losses are extremely ugly. We got to say it how it is. Texas A&M. I still have Texas A&M at number 19 in the entire country. I wouldn't rank them in the top 25 if I was a person that had the opportunity to put together like the college football playoff rankings. I wouldn't rank them in the top 25, but on neutral side field, I do still believe Texas A&M is the number 19 team in the country. Arizona, I have at 18. They pull the upset off against Oregon State. I told you guys the last time Arizona played, this team is going to pull off an upset or two. And what do they do the next time that they played? They beat Oregon State, a top 25 team, a team we'll see later in this Any Given Saturday top 25. Don't think we forgot about the Beavers, but Wildcats are playing great ball, and I think arguably this is the scariest 5-3 team that's in America right now. Ole Miss at 17. Rebels control their own destiny in the SEC East right now. They win out, find a way to beat Georgia somehow, then they'll find themselves possibly playing in Atlanta. They do need a little bit of help in LSU beating Alabama this upcoming weekend. But other than that, Ole Miss does control their own destiny. And then at 16 is UCLA. They handle their business against Stanford. They keep it rolling. They're up to number 16 in the entire country. Now, we get into our top 15, and the one thing that Washington has, one notable thing in this top 15 from this 11 to 15, it's Washington Huskies. We saw Washington with a big-time win, a signature win against a very good Oregon team. A team that I would argue was the best team in the country that is not undefeated. Oregon, I think, is the best team in the country if you look at it from that lens, right? Ever since then, Washington has struggled immensely over the past couple of weeks. They barely beat Arizona State. That game was at home. They've somehow found a way to win that game, even though they didn't even score an offensive touchdown. I don't know how you pull that off. That is some very Iowa stuff that they did there. But they found a way to win regardless. Okay. And then the following week, struggled again against Stanford on the road. Stanford showing some life for a 2-6 team. They also nearly beat USC. They came back from 29 down to beat Colorado. That prevented them from being a 5-win team. Could change the entire dynamic of Colorado's season. But needless to say, Washington has struggled the last couple of weeks. And this last month of the season, it's going to be arguably the toughest part. So going to play against a USC team that arguably has almost nothing to lose. USC, for all intents and purposes, still in the fight for the Pac-12 championship. There is no divisions this year. They also have Utah at home. Utah, a stingy team, very good defensively. So Washington cannot overlook them. Oregon State on the road. Oregon State, again, a team recently knocked down the college football playoff because of that Arizona loss. But Oregon State is still in the hunt for the Pac-12 championship. And playing in Corvallis, not going to be easy. Very underrated college football environment. And then a rivalry game, Apple Cup against Washington State. And while they should be favored in all of these games that I mentioned, this is not by any means a very easy schedule to navigate. So Washington has to play at a higher level. We have to see that same team that was on the field the first month of the season, where their defense was actually showing up and playing good ball If not, Washington could be in danger of losing a game. They're undefeated, but they've been on very shaky ground the last couple of weeks. So that's why we moved them down to number 15 in the country. And then you see 11 through 14 as well. No big changes here. Okay, so we now move into the top 10. One big change here in the top 10. It's Penn State. We had them ranked number 3 in the country, and now we moved them down 5 spots. They're down to number 8. Penn State took on Indiana, and while Penn State found a way to win, it was not a good look to be in a dogfight with Indiana. Indiana won. No, not one of them. Indiana is the worst team in the entirety of the Big Ten, right? And yet, oh, and by the way, this game was also at home. And the Nittany Lions, they almost lost this game. This game could have been tied. It might have been tied for all I know. And Penn State found a way to win. They got it done. But very concerned about the offensive consistency moving forward. They also did not have any answers for the Ohio State defense the last couple of weeks, so that's another big thing about it too. Penn State, they still got to play Michigan. It's a must-win if they want to stay alive in that Big Ten championship hunt going to Indianapolis. Michigan in the same division as Penn State in that loaded Big Ten East, by the way. Penn State's got some answers. Drew Aller, while we found a way to pull it out, got to have some more consistency on the offensive end. I think we can all agree to that. And finally, we have the top 5. 2 things about the top 5 that I really want to hone in on. Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is one of the best 2-loss teams in the country. I think Kansas State is the hottest, but I think Notre Dame might be the best team in the country in general. Among the 2-loss teams, Notre Dame just abused Pittsburgh. And we're going to talk about Notre Dame in a little bit. We might lead that first game recap. We might actually do that. But Notre Dame is playing some really good ball. They came out, they demolished the Pittsburgh Panthers. And the rest of the games that they have, Clemson, Wake Forest, Stanford, all very navigatable games. Clemson has not looked at the same level. So Notre Dame can finish the season on a 5-game winning streak. And listen, if it comes down to where we are legitimately just talking about 2-loss teams in the college football playoff, I think Notre Dame would have to be in that conversation if they find a way to go on a 5-game winning streak. I mean, the middle stretch that they had was Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC, all teams that were ranked in the top 25 at the time. I mean, that's one of the most difficult slates, any 4-game slate that any college football team can have. You can't tell me that Notre Dame has not had a difficult strength of schedule, and that's even with Clemson admittedly having a down year. I think Notre Dame's playing some good football, but we'll see if they can continue that focus, continue staying in the moment per se. And then number 1 team in the country, I still have Michigan. Michigan was on bye. I do want to say this about Michigan. I kind of wanted to address the elephant in the room. There is certainly a chance that's more than 0%, that Michigan did something that they weren't supposed to do, whether it's by the NCAA or, and this is rumors, this is allegedly, but I do want to put it out there, the FBI might also be involved too. Gonna let that simmer for just a minute. When the FBI is involved in something, that's usually not a good sign. I do believe in the idea of innocent until proven guilty. So we're going to see what happens when the dust settles on these allegations against the University of Michigan. We'll see what happens, what the NCAA decides to do. If they decide in a timely manner, what the College Football Playoff Committee decides to do as well. We're actually going to see their first college football rankings in a couple of hours as I'm recording this podcast, actually. It's 5 o'clock right now. It's now 7. So rankings come out at 7, but that's besides the point. Until then, until we get definitive okay, there was wrongdoing here. I still think Michigan is the best team in the country, but I do have questions about their integrity and whether they did it without cheating or not. We'll see what happens at NCAA investigation. So I haven't said anything about it extensively because there's a lot of information flying around, and it's easy to get caught in misinformation, especially in 2023. It's easy to get caught in that misinformation. So we're gonna let the situation play out. There is a chance that there's some serious wrongdoing here. I think we can all agree on that. But until they are officially punished, if they are punished, I still have Michigan as the number one team in the United States, at least at the college level right now.